I am Dinah Stevens. I am the program manager here at Age Friendly Seattle, and I often moderate this event, but not today. I am going to be sharing the stage with my colleague, Mary Pat. So I'm just pulling up our slideshow. Here we go. So thanks again for joining us today. We are once again operating in a hybrid environment. So we've got some folks joining us online, including our panelists and our moderator. And then we have lots of folks joining us in person. So hello to everyone who is gathered together drinking actual coffee. And just so everyone knows, even if you're watching this online, we are doing this in 4 different languages simultaneously. So we will be speaking in English today, but we will be translating into Vietnamese, Oromo, and Amharic. So thank you to our translators. And this is a reminder to our panelists and our moderator to make sure we are speaking at a pace that's comfortable for our translators as well. So I'm going to kick us off with a land acknowledgement. And before I do the land acknowledgement, I also want to acknowledge the space that we are in today, which is the High Point Neighborhood House, partnering with the Seattle Housing Authority once again to bring this event live in person to folks in the High Point neighborhood of West Seattle. So thank you to all of you. And if we zoom out from there, I do want to also recognize that we are all on the traditional lands of the Duwamish tribe, the first people of Seattle, past and present. And if you would like to learn more, I really encourage you to visit realrent.com or theduwamishtribe.org and learn about how you can get involved and learn more about the lands that we are all on and sharing. So today is today is not World Food Day. That was last month. Today we are talking about winterization. So I will skip that portion and I'm going to let Mary Pat, who is our moderator, give us more context around winterization and what that means. But first I want to invite Emily Billow, who is our partner at Seattle Public Library, who we do this event with, to come on and say hello herself. Emily, do you have any announcements to share? Well, Emily is actually in the room, and so she may be. Oh, I see her raised hand. And I do not know how to get to her. Allow it to talk. You're on, Emily.
Hello, everyone. I'm Emily, the older adult program manager. And I just want to say welcome from the library. We're so glad that you're here, either in person or online. We don't have a whole lot of classes for December other than a Medicare fraud class. And there's more information in the foyer about it. So feel free to look. It's about Medicare fraud. We appreciate everyone coming and we hope you enjoy this program. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. And now, again, a big shout out to our partners at Seattle Housing Authority and the Neighborhood House in High Point, and also in particular to Ella McRae, who is a community builder who has really helped to bring these events in person and bring them to life. So thank you, Ella, if you can see me. Big thank you. And thank you to Ito's Tapas, who provided the lunch today. So if you haven't tried Ito's, they're on California Avenue here in West Seattle, around the corner. And so we're enjoying their food today at our Civic coffee event. And now I would like to introduce our moderator, and I will hand it over to her in a moment. So Mary Pat O'Leary is a colleague of mine in the Seattle Human Services Department, Aging and Disability Services, which also functions as the Area Agency on Aging. Mary, I have already learned a lot from Mary Pat in my 10 months on this job, so happy to have her here as our moderator today. She has over 42 years of nursing experience under her belt, so she knows a lot. She also is a published writer on a range of topics. And Mary Pat really works to promote healthy aging and healthy living within our communities. She is a great partner, whether working locally with our city colleagues or with our county partners or even at the state. She's constantly piloting programs. And so I know I can see that her bio here references the program she piloted called Stay Connected, but I also know she's been involved in piloting programs like the Capable program, all aimed at keeping older adults healthy, connected, and helping folks age at home. And Mary Pat is also passionate about emergency preparedness. And so it's perfect to have her here with us today talking about winterization. She does a lot of work around fall prevention. And so she's a great moderator to be with us today. So with that, Mary Pat, I will make myself dark and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Dinah, for such a gracious acknowledgement and introduction. It is my pleasure and honor to be here today with my esteemed colleagues and friends in the community. It does take a village to provide supports and services for older adults. And the topic today is particularly important because many older adults face challenges as the weather gets colder. And they are at higher risk for injuries and problems related to colder temperatures and other winter hazards. As our bodies age, our bodies become more difficult to manage when we're feeling cold and acknowledging cold. It's very easy to get frostbite, even if it's not below zero, where I come from in the Midwest in North Dakota. Also, older adults, either in apartments or condos or homeowners, face the challenges of slippery slidewalks, many of the leaves that are not swept up, and when it starts to rain, it becomes very slick. They also collect leaves in the gutters and the downspouts, and this can lead to some flooding. And as Dinah mentioned, I'm really passionate about falls, having suffered a fall myself, and that falls can be a leading cause of fatal as well as non-fatal injuries in older adults. And again, as the icy streets and sidewalks, we see frost on the grass as I woke up this morning. It might be hard for older adults to actually go outside when it's cold and when it's raining. And this impacts our social activation and our physical activity. And so we start to, quote, hibernate. So I am really, really pleased today to be joined by such an incredible panel of experts in their field. First, we'll have Civic Don. He's a community engagement specialist with the City of Seattle's Office of Housing. He is a community engagement specialist extraordinaire, honestly. And I've just recently met him, but I can tell you, I feel his passion and see his passion when he has presented on panels. He really focuses on working with the underserved communities and creating equitable access to Office of Housing programs and the home repair program, weatherization, and clean heat programs. Prior to the Office of Housing, Civic worked for the Public Defenders Association, where he developed public safety diversion programs with law enforcement agencies and behavioral health services in local municipalities throughout the Northwest. He's deeply involved in Seattle's Asian American community, having served on the Mayor Murray's Special Task Force on Public Safety and Neighborhood Vitality in the Chinatown International District, and was appointed by the Washington State Commission on Pacific American Affairs to the Legislative Task Force on the use of body cameras worn by law enforcement. We're also going to be joined by Carol Redfield. Carol is a doctor of nursing practice, registered nurse, adjunct faculty of nursing services, Seattle Pacific University. She's been an oncology nurse for 3.5 decades. However, she switched to gerontology in the last decade. She's been a faculty at Seattle Pacific University, nursing school since 1998, part-time teaching students, and doing a lot of more community-based gerontology work, such as aging preparedness and healthcare navigation. She is getting ready to launch the Dealing with Dementia workshop in our community. And this work is based on the Rosalind Carter's Institute at Georgia State University. It really supports families and the professional caregivers. And it's only a 4-hour long workshop, but it really supports our caregivers. And we know how important our caregivers are, particularly for those that are living with cognitive challenges. And last but not least is Martha Poponis. And Martha is a nutrition and advocacy director at Homage Senior Services. Martha is honestly, dietitian extraordinaire. She retired in 2019, but she previously served for 29 years as a nutrition and advocacy director for Homage Senior Services, nonprofit agency serving older adults and people with disabilities. She managed the home delivered and congregate meal programs in Snohomish County, the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, the Chronic Disease Self-Management Education Programs, and really coordinated advocacy efforts for the agency. So without further ado, we'll just get into our questions of our panelists. So first, Sokta, can you tell us about the City of Seattle's HomeWise weatherization program? And
Yeah,
that would, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for having me live streaming this event and just giving us an opportunity to talk today. The weatherization program from the City of Seattle. Again, I work at the City of Seattle's Office of Housing. The weatherization program is focused on keeping your home warm in the winter and cool in the summer. And this program is all about reducing your utility burden. We know that the cost of electricity is high. We know that the cost of warming your home is high. So weatherization really is about building science. It's how to keep your home energy efficient. And this weatherization program through the Office of Housing, what we provide is we provide weatherization services directly to your home. And that means we have a field staff who goes out into your home, does a complete energy audit of your home. This means we're looking for where heat is leaking, where cold air is coming in, and they'll spend anywhere from 4 to sometimes even 6 hours into your home and really dig through everything, going through your crawl space, checking your air sealing, and really talking to you about where you spend most of your time in your home. This program is actually completely free. So it's zero cost to you if you live in the City of Seattle or if you live outside the City of Seattle, as long as you have a Seattle City light bill as your energy utility provider, then we're able to provide the service for you at free. Of course, the programs I'm talking about today are all based on income eligibility. So that means there are guidelines to income guidelines in order to qualify for these programs. But as you know, the cost of living in the City of Seattle is high. And I promise you, I talk to folks who don't know, who think they do qualify or who think they don't qualify, but they end up qualifying just because the cost of living in the City of Seattle is so high. That is in kind of briefly what the weatherization program is about. If you can remember, keeping your utility burden low, which means it's going to cost you less money to keep your utilities on, and also just living in a more comfortable home. So you don't have to worry about turning up the heat in the winter or where the most cozy spot is in the home, because we want to make your home as cozy as possible during winter.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Carol, as a nurse, what do you see are some of the most common winter-related illnesses or accidents that older adults might experience?
Thanks, Mary Pat. And I think you have mentioned some things already in your introduction there. Definitely when the temperature goes down, the black ice and the iciness on the roads as you're going in and out. it needs to be addressed. So having a bag full of salt ready in your garage or someplace in your home to kind of do that, sprinkle down right away is a good idea. In terms of physical illness, we all know the flu and colds this is the season for that. So making sure that you get your flu shots, making sure that you're well hydrated and taking your vitamins. Just because our gut is not able to absorb as much of the food items, nutrient components. So having extra things in terms of the vitamins is helpful because the cells will take in whatever they're deficit in. Definitely just keeping warm for sure because of the fact that the weather is cooler. And I do know that for older adults with thin layers of fat, it is especially important to make sure you have layered upon clothes that are natural, clothes like wool, cotton, that type rather than the polyester type of clothing. And so having those kind of things are helpful to keep you warm, keep you away from catching colds, and then when you go out, making sure keeping your masks on during this time because everybody else may be having the same thing. So you don't want to be catching that, and also very good hygiene, hand hygiene. If you're able to make sure when you're washing your hands before and after going to the bathroom, before touching surfaces, there's like a set of times that even when you come into the house, just when you're coming from the outside, wash your hands, making sure you're catching the hands on the getting the soap clean on the outside, in between the fingers and the thumb area. Any place where there's creases and calluses, make sure you do extra hand washing there. Hand washing is free. You do it yourself. You're in control of that, and it breaks the cycle of infection. All right. Pneumonias are more common during the winter time. We see that in the hospitalization for older folks. So again, try to make sure that you are staying as healthy as you can with clothing and with your diet.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol. So we know that older adults' perception of feeling cold can be challenging. So Martha, question for you. Based on that, do older adults have special nutritional needs and hydrational needs during cold weather? And could you please share what healthy eating means for an older adult versus perhaps a grandchild or a younger family member?
Oh, sure. Thanks, Mary Pat. And again, thank you for having me today. This is I think, a really timely and important topic that we're talking about. So the nutritional needs for older people, there are some increased nutritional needs that people have as they age, but typically a lot of those needs can be met within the family meal. As long as there is a wide variety of foods that are presented at the mealtime. As Carol mentioned, there are some nutrients that probably need or may need some supplementation, but you should work with your provider about that because there are some vitamins that are fat soluble that can build up to somewhat toxic levels if you're not, if you don't have somebody who's helping you decide how much you need to take. The nutrients that are particularly increased for older adults are calcium, vitamin B12, vitamin D, which is a real issue for us up here in the north. Even in the summer, we still don't often get as much vitamin D as our bodies need, and our bodies don't absorb or convert the inactive form of vitamin D to the active form. So for older adults, vitamin D is particularly important, as is fiber. So if you're eating a wide variety of fruits and vegetables, especially those that are richly colored, that's going to provide a lot of the vitamins and minerals that are really important in helping to keep your immune system functioning. And particularly during the winter when we're so susceptible to colds and flus and pneumonia and all those kinds of things, having a strong immune system is really important. The fruits and vegetables are also really important for your eye health, for blood pressure control, decrease the risk of some cancers and those kinds of things. So always including that in your meal. And then protein sources, and we know that older adults actually have some increased protein needs because it's important to keep our muscle mass strong. And having good muscle mass keeps us more physically functioning. So walking, doing any kind of physical activity, we really do need that muscle mass. So that's fish, chicken, lean meats, and then there are some plant-based protein sources that are really good as well. That is also very important to help maintain a good immune system. Whole grains, we use a lot of whole grains. That provides fiber and helps to prevent constipation and reduce the risk of some chronic diseases. Chronic diseases are very prevalent in the older population. So things like diabetes and heart disease. And then it's also really important that people get a good source of calcium in their diet. If you're able to take dairy, that's an excellent source of calcium. If not, there are pills that you can take with dairy that will help you digest it if you are lactose intolerant. Or there are products that are fortified with dairy or with calcium, like orange juice is an example. You can buy calcium fortified orange juice, or you can get some plant-based foods that are high in calcium as well. Now, like we said, some of those nutrients really do need to be supplemented. So work with your provider on that. Some of them actually that want to do a blood test to see where your levels are to make sure that then you get the right amount of supplementation. And then Carol did mention, and another thing that's extraordinarily important is hydration. Making sure that you're getting enough fluid, water, coffee, tea, juice, whatever, but you're getting enough fluid because dehydration can cause a wide range of problems in older adults.
Thank you, Martha. That was very helpful. That was very helpful. Okay, back to you, Soka. What about the Seattle's home repair loan program? Why is that important? And what kinds of issues can the funds be used to address? And what are some of the most common repairs?
Great question. So the home repair program from the City Seattle Office of Housing. Let me take a step back, actually. As a community engagement specialist, I'm finding that most of the folks, community members that apply to our programs are older adults. That's the majority of our clientele are older adults because they're finding that as they age, their homes also age, and the homes get in disrepair. And as we age, it's a little bit harder, more challenging, although there are solutions such as this home repair program, to get our homes into tip-top shape. So that is what is the home repair program really about. It's keeping your home structurally safe and sound, especially as you age, as we're finding through this program. The home repair program provides a loan of up to $45,000. And the great thing about this loan is that 0%, 0% interest to you. Where our interest is that you are able to repair your home, and we're not trying to dime and nickel you in order to do that, or trying to make a profit off of that. And the other great component about this loan is that it could be deferred, and there are reasons for this, but basically, if we through our financial kind of analysis, and we do have a intake a specialist who runs through the application, that you're unable to pay back the loan, then we can work for you to do a deferred loan, and that means basically you don't have to pay the loan back until the house is sold. Now let me get into what the type of repairs that Mary asked in her question. Type of repairs vary, but we find it common that the most common types of repair are roofing, especially in this climate. The rain, the water does a lot of damage to our roofs. So we get a lot of clients who ask about repairing a hole in the roof, or their roof has collapsed or is in despair. But we also do siding, we do electrical work, we do anything that really affects your health and safety. That's the most important thing. If it impacts your health and safety, it's almost likely that this home repair program can help and assist you. I think the best thing about this program is actually we have project managers that really are going to be with you through the beginning of this process to the very end. We know that working with contractors, especially finding the right contractor, or let me repeat that, or let me say that in a different way. But we know that finding contractors can be difficult. And what we do provide is we have a list of contractors that have successfully completed at least one project with the Office of Housing that we can provide with you. And then also we serve as that middleman to make sure that the project is done within the budget, proposed, done well, and done on time. The home repair program is open to City of Seattle residents, homeowners, single family homeowners. And there is an application process, which I can talk a bit more probably towards the end of this conversation too.
Thank you so much. And as I mentioned, well, Dinah mentioned about the Capable program, that's for minor home modifications with an occupational therapist and a nurse. And so I just recently talked to SOTAD to see about how we might have those types of things addressed. But then if the homeowner needs major kind of restoration or improvements like a roof or siding, maybe there is a way to make that warm connection. So thank you so much for that. Okay, Carol, we did talk about falls, about the slippery sidewalks and everything else. And you mentioned about salt that maybe a homeowner could have for their sidewalk. But are there other tips or suggestions that you can provide for older adults who might be going outside of the home? And what are some of those risk factors?
Yeah, great. So going just in general, falls can be looked at in terms of three things: in terms of balance, home modification, which Soka just talked about, and purposeful activity. So your question about the environment going in and out of the house, especially during the wintertime, is a really important thing. Making sure that the walkway is clear. If you've got old mats outside, see if you can get rid of that and put some new ones in there so you don't slip. Making sure you've got friends and neighbors who can help you clear the leaves. If there's snow shovel, this is where families really need to come in to help get some people in line ready to call when some of these things happen. Now, I know internally, in terms of wearing the right clothes and so forth, I just got my dad something similar to this. I was going to show you traction cleats that you can get. So sometimes, of course, you need to bend over to do this, but having traction cleats or good footing is important. Good traction. Now, if you've got rubber and you're on a hill, you still probably need to have something that really will grip to the ice and the snow. You don't want to have a fall. And when you do, I really appreciate Martha's comments about vitamin D and calcium. My father has fallen several times, but the fact that because he has good intake on those two elements, his bone density is really strong. So that gives me, as a family member, assurance that, if you fall, at least we're sure that your bones are a little okay than the regular person. And the other is wearing bumper pants. Have you ever heard of those? That's kind of where you wear it's kind of an underwear that could be worn by itself or over your underwear, but it's got pads on the sides so that when you fall, you've got extra padding there. Now, one can also try to do their own by putting several layers, around the pants area. But knowing how to fall is another thing too, is to be able to kind of go down slowly and not panic. I think sometimes when we panic, and sometimes we don't even have time to think about that, but if you can just go down and pretend you're sitting down on the ground, or roll into a ball when you fall, those are kind of important keys too as well. But in terms of environment, making sure you're at a place where the clutter is not there and the lighting is good. So when you're outside, making sure that you've got some lights that are the sensitive lights to movements. If you're in an apartment, maybe you can ask the landlord about that. But making sure that wherever you're traveling from your door to your car, that there is good lighting and that the pathway is nice and clear. Not sure if I'm answering your question, Mary Pat.
You did, Carol. Thank you so much. And what I appreciate so much about all of you, this is a true shout out from me, is that you're not only professionals, but you're family members. As you shared, Carol, you have your father, and it might be a spouse or a partner or whatever, so that we're not an island. So even if we ourselves aren't experiencing it, we're thinking about others that may be undergoing some of these winterization and weatherization challenges. So thank you so much. Going to you, Martha, and Martha and I did a training for new leaders for chronic conditions, and we were delighted to do this for Eastern Washington. And so managing chronic conditions can be challenging any day, any time of the year, any time of the day, but particularly in cold weather, when you're having a harder time getting out, maybe to get groceries, and also just being socially isolated. So Martha, could you talk a little bit about what folks can do to manage chronic conditions through healthy eating, and what might you want to share with a family member or caregiver who's providing help and support for an older adult?
Sure. Thanks, Mary Pat. So many chronic diseases have a really strong nutrition component. So both either in the prevention of the chronic disease or in the treatment. So some examples are like diabetes, which very naturally has a strong diet component to it. High blood pressure, osteoporosis, heart disease, kidney disease, all of those things, nutrition becomes really important. If somebody has a chronic condition like that, my recommendation always is to try to see a registered dietitian to get some individualized help in how are you going to manage your meal plan to accommodate and to help treat that particular condition. But if we're looking at sort of generically, what we can do as far as diet and chronic conditions, and this is any time of the year, would be to reduce the amount of salt that we take, reduce the sodium, minimize the amount of added sugar and saturated fats that we eat. And one easy way of doing that is minimize the amount of processed foods. You don't want to have as much processed foods. And then sugar sweetened beverages, like soft drinks and that kind of thing. And then cutting back on that, and then also cutting back on alcohol. So those are really good preventative practices to have. And if a medical condition already exists, all of those are appropriate, plus then seeking consultation. Now, this is the time of year that I think is actually kind of what I really like about this time of year is that I feel like eating stews and soups and those kinds of foods. And those things can be done. You can use them, do a slow cooker. People can make a large batch of whatever, soup or stew, and then freeze it in individual portions so that you have that to eat on during the rest of the year. Hydration, again, like we talked about, is super important. If you can get out, or if you have somebody who can come in and eat a meal with you, that's awesome, because having that social contact, eating is a very social event, particularly in our country. If you ever think about times that you get together with people, what is it centered around? Centered around a meal, or you meet for snacks, or you do whatever. So it's a very social event. So we tend to eat better when we have other people around. So either invite people in, or get together with people maybe that are in your apartment complex, or if you can get out to a senior dining meal site, that's another really optimum way to be able to help increase your intake. And then keeping safe by keeping your food safe, cleaning your surfaces in your hands, as Carol really aptly, discussed, washing your hands, keeping the clean surfaces, cooking foods to the proper temperatures, using a thermometer, make sure you're at the proper temperature, chilling foods properly, and then making sure that you're not cross-contaminating. So that if you're maybe making a stew, you have some raw meat that you're cutting, sanitize that cutting board. Don't put anything else on it until you get that washed and totally sanitized. During the winter, I think great foods to use, particularly if you've got the flu, things to help keep you hydrated, like soups or broth, chicken soup. That's sort of an old wives' tale, but it really is true. That it really does help with some cold types of symptoms. Yogurt is really good because of the probiotics in yogurt. So that's an excellent food to eat if you're having the flu. And then foods that are high in vitamin C, like oranges and grapefruit, citrus fruits, leafy greens, broccoli, those kinds of things. We know that vitamin C will help keep your immune system functioning at a higher level. And then there are some anti-inflammatory spices that people like to use, like ginger and turmeric. And so there are teas that are made with those kinds of spices. And that can also help to break up some of the congestion that you might feel when you have a cold or the flu.
Thank you, Martha. That's so helpful. And because we have a diverse group of attendees virtually as well as in person, I really appreciated what you said about community meals. I think many times we've become where we're eating standing up or in front of the television. And I know when I have an opportunity to really have a community meal or celebrate a meal with a friend or a family member, it's so powerful. So thank you so much, Martha. Okay, so Soka, you shared that the Office of Housing provides support to moderate renters, homeowners. Do you see the weatherization program and home repair really as strategies, really functional ways for older adults to safely age in place? Are there other programs or initiatives that your department has? And I have a little tag along question is, what do you might see as the biggest barrier of asking for assistance? Is it fear of I'm not going to qualify, or my home is all messy and I don't think anybody should come in? So sorry, I have a multi-leveled question.
Yeah, no worries at all. I think that's a really great question and point to add on. Overall, yes, I think that the home repair and winterization program, we call these are home ownership stabilization programs. And what this means is we want to make sure that the home is something that that you don't have to worry about, that you're part of being having a safe shelter, safe space for you is as much as possible through these direct service programs. I feel, but also experience-wise, the challenges I see with getting enrolled into a program or fear is just, I think income is a big thing. I'm sometimes surprised about the income limits and what the maximum income amount is. As we get older, we're relying on more limited amounts of income. Social Security income, if we're lucky enough to have a pension, if we're lucky enough to have Social Security income disability, but our income really gets limited once we get older. And once your income changes, I'd say and encourage you to look into our programs if there's that fear. And also, it just doesn't hurt to ask. One of the things is that our income limits change every year, and every year it has increased. So if you don't qualify for 1 year, you may qualify the next year. If, for instance, you are going to retire, I'm sure your income has changed too as well. So that next year, that's the income we're going to look at. And of course, there are linguistic, cultural, I think, opportunities that the Office of Housing is looking at, as far as making sure that our application is language accessible, that our materials are language accessible. And that's one of the highlights of my work, making sure that folks who do speak a different language, who need interpretation services, that I'm able to connect them with a provider that's able to ensure that the language access is not a barrier.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, Carol, question for you. Normal age-related changes to our skin. As we know, our skin can become thinner, drier, and more fragile. So what are some steps that we could take to add to our skincare regimen to make sure that we're minimizing any discomfort and any complications that really dry weather might bring to our skin?
Yes, I'm probably not the best person to talk to about beautifying the skin, but so skin is an interesting thing. It is one of our largest defense to the germs and injuries in the world, right? So we have to keep the skin intact. Making sure you drink enough fluids is number one. Now, I do want to go back, and I know that Martha talked about making sure you have enough fluids in terms of juice and tea and coffee. When I was in oncology care, we always say if you drink a cup of coffee or a cup of tea that's caffeinated, you want to drink about the same amount to replace it, because those are kind of like diuretic type because of the caffeination. So making sure you're getting lots of fluids. When you first get up in the morning, make sure you get in about maybe 500 to a liter of fluids if you're able to. I know that as the days goes on, you want to lessen it. And so by about 4 o'clock, you want to make sure the fluids are not so large that you'll be waking up at nighttime when you go to sleep. So keeping hydration up and keeping you going so you're not dizzy because of low blood pressure. Those are all things to kind of keep in mind. So again, if you've got some chronic diseases where it interferes you having too much fluids, you want to talk to your physician, your primary provider about that. But normally people should get their biggest amount of fluids in the morning. That's also great for the skin. It's great for the cells and so forth. Okay. In terms of dry skin in the wintertime, always make sure you've got something, especially after a bath or after a shower, to just lather on any kind of lotion that you have. Now, you want to be careful of putting lotion, or, some people like to put coconut oil on because it seems to be a little bit heavier type of lubricant, and it stays on. Be careful around putting it around the heels. Yes, the heels are really places where it gets dry, but you don't want to slip if you've got wooden floors. So make sure that if you are going to be putting on solvents or lubricants and so forth around the feet, that you wear some kind of house shoes and so forth around the house rather than bare feet, right? When you don't want to go into dry skin simply because of the scratching and the flaky skin. Well, then, especially with multiple scratches, I've seen this with my mother, then you start seeing the red marks and then skin breakdown. And then that's where you have infection risks right there, and pain, as well as just constantly scratching and kind of being distracting yourself. So making sure that if you do take a bath, having nice oil or some kind of a bath oil type of a thing inside the water would be great for you to kind of help with the drying of the skin there. If you do have a tendency to be really scratchy and achy and flaky, oatmeal baths are great. They are wonderful in terms of helping you feel like you're really getting a good cleanup, as well as the fact that they do soothe you along the way. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
It
definitely
does.
keep lubricated, keep the skin from being so dry that they'll crack.
Absolutely. And I remind my sister in North Dakota, do you need some lotion? Oh, I have a lot, but are you using it? Wow, that's a good reminder.
Yeah.
It's a really good reminder. So I'm going to ask each of you from your perspective about emergency planning in the winter. As Dinah said, I'm very passionate about emergency preparedness. My mother was in North Dakota when they had the Grand Forks flood, that the whole town was flooded. She had to be taken out by boat, Coast Guard. And I've done a lot of emergency preparedness from when we had the Katrina evacuees and also emergency services with the city. And we just know that just being prepared helps us to prosper in whatever it happens to be, whether it's cold weather, power outage, or whatever. And some of us might live within the city, but some of us might live in more of a rural area like Martha. And so how do you make sure that you're really looking at this? So from your perspectives, why is emergency planning in the winter important? And what should older adults consider to have on hand? So we'll go to you first, Soka.
Yeah, no, those are really really great questions that I'm kind of thinking on my feet right now. But what I do know about our program is that, for instance, the winterization program, the home repair program, it gets really busy during this time. So as much as you can, please plan ahead. Try to, for instance, people, we get in the Northwest especially, we get months of sunshine, June, July, August, and that as far as the wet weather, if your roof is leaking, you kind of forget about the roof leaking. So I'd say please think ahead about applying for this program. Maybe if you have a roof leakage, consider applying it in the summer, or winterization program. If you know that it gets cold in the winter, please consider applying in the spring. I think as far as like logistically and programmatically, we certainly get an uptick in the fall and winter, because I believe it tends to be that characterizes it as perhaps last minute thinking about things as far as the comfort of your home. The city of Seattle, a program that I didn't mention is in 2028. The city of Seattle is hoping and planning to get rid of oil heat, as far as using oil heat to heat your home. So that's certainly something you can plan ahead. We have a program where we're converting oil homes that are using oil heat to electric heating systems, called our Clean Heat program. So you do have several years to consider that program to convert from oil to electric heat. Those are three things on top of my mind as far as planning and thinking ahead. Always feel free to ask us questions. We get a lot of phone calls on our intake line about folks thinking about retirement, about folks knowing that they don't meet income qualifications, but still asking us about the application process, or because they just want to get a step ahead and know what documents that are required to submit.
Okay, thank you so much. On to you, Carol. So why is emergency planning important, and what should older adults consider to have on hand?
Yeah, I think the word resiliency and reserves come to mind. We need to have enough so that if we are caught in the house of whatever emergency there is, that we at least have enough to sustain us for the next little while. Now, I just came back from Salt Lake City, and I was really impressed with that city. Apparently, everybody in that city, more or less, have preparedness for at least a good 3 months. I'm not sure why we wouldn't, of course, they have the faith-based part that's motivating it. But we need to think about, do we have enough food in our freezers to last for maybe a week? Do we have enough dry cans, perishable, stuff around as well? Going to, and I think recently been hearing more about My Patriot, some kind of a .com where you can get enough supplies for several years, which I'm really interested in finding out what they're putting in their foods. But anyway, the other piece is going to REI or any kind of camping, outside recreation places where you can see if you can get those condensed prepared foods for winter or for any kind of emergency if you can't get out to get food or food can't come to you. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts all have information about getting camping type of food. So, if you know family members who are into that, try to get the links to those as well. So I do believe we need to make sure we have candles, we have blankets, we have emergency backpacks in the car, one, at least one for the house, but maybe one for every floor if you have several floors to your home. That you do have matches and you have candles, you have Band-Aids, you have water, and so forth and so on. So I think it's a good time to really think about re-updating your emergency kit if you have one already, but it's been years since you've updated it.
Okay, thank you so much. And Martha, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think that was, that was pretty much it. I think water is a huge thing. So making sure that you have a lot of water on hand. And I live in a very, very rural area, and I'm an hour from the closest real grocery store. So every time I go out, I'm always thinking about, what do I have on hand? What do I need to add? So that if I get stuck up here, which we do, for a couple of weeks at a time, I know that I've got enough food. Protein bars are really good to keep on hand. Peanut butter, I mean, who can go wrong with peanut butter, right? So peanut butter is awesome. Crackers, anything that you can eat that doesn't require cooking is great. They even have milk that is shelf stable that you can have that on hand. If you're using canned fruits and vegetables, I always look for the lower sodium ones. And then making sure that you actually have a manual can opener. A lot of people rely on an electric can opener, and if the electricity is out, you aren't going to be able to open up cans. So use an electric can opener. Cereals, dried fruit, bread. As long as you have electricity, having a supply of frozen meals on hand is great. And that either can be like through a Meals on Wheels program or just buying. There's many, many varieties at the grocery store, and having those on hand. So.
Thank you, Martha.
Yes.
And for those of you that are on the phone or might be calling in, or maybe you not be able to see it, I'm holding up a small green colored flashlight. And we were talking earlier this morning on an emergency preparedness call, and I said, it's really important to have more than one. Obviously, you don't know when the battery is going to go out in one. And if you're in the living room and the power goes out in your whole neighborhood and it's pitch dark, you might not be able to get into the bathroom or your bedroom where your flashlight is that you usually have right by your bedstand. So always having more than one flashlight, I think, is important. Oh, thank you so much for this wonderful discussion. We do have some questions in the chat, but I would just ask each of you briefly, what is one tip, one thing that you would like to share with the folks on the call or in person about ensuring that older adults can have a warm and safe and healthy winter? Soka?
I would say that it doesn't hurt to ask questions. I think if you have any questions or curiosity about our programs, please feel free to, I feel free, and also I encourage you to reach out to us. If you have a question about, if this type of repair qualifies, please just reach out. It doesn't hurt to ask. And our goal is to not just say no or go if we don't have an answer. Our goal is to connect you to another city agency or a service provider that can help.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Carol?
I would say that socialization is very important, especially during a time when it's probably a little hard for most people because of the fact that you can't go out and travel as much and you can't be with family, or families are passing type of a thing. But I think earlier Martha talked about eating in community, and so did you, Mary Pat. If you've got an iPad, make sure you call somebody else during dinner time and eat with that person, even though you're seeing them electronically. It's really important to keep up the engagement so that our mental health doesn't go south. And so any way of phoning, iPad, FaceTime, when you are able to do that, because it really does help with getting you feeling better, more energy. The neurotransmitters are just being stimulated and lighting up.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol. And Martha?
Well, I think I would just concur with what Carol said. I think eating in community is just really awesome. But, you know, I guess just making sure that you're eating, you know, I mean, that seems so basic, but it's just so important. And making sure that you're eating safely so that you're following good food safety practices, because this is the last time of the year. I mean, you never want to have foodborne illness. But in the winter, when your immune system is down, if you end up getting, you know, you're eating food that's unsafe or you're not preparing it to where it's safe, that illness can really, really be devastating. So just keeping your food safe, stay hydrated, and eat.
Thank you, Martha. And I would say I really appreciate that about nutrition. Is when I ask people, what did you have for breakfast? And if they say oatmeal, you know, eggs, and a kind of, but when you know that someone's had something that was delicious, just something that just even thinking about it makes their mouth water, that as we age, we lose the taste buds and things don't taste the same. So trying to ensure that we encourage people, as you said, to eat a healthy, balanced diet, but things that are tasty and nutritious. So thank you. I'm going to go ahead and ask the questions that have been raised by the chat. First one is, does the weatherization program apply for renters? That's for you, Soka.
Yeah, no, thanks for that question in the chat room. I want to answer that question. The weatherization program, we do have a multifamily weatherization component. It is a little bit trickier because as far as how that program works is that the whole building has to income qualify. So what I would do is I work with the landlord or the property manager to get the income qualifications of that building. And I believe it's 50% or more of the tenants have to qualify. Most of the multifamily weatherization projects we do, we work with affordable housing providers, your SHAs of the world or Bellwether, and we do multifamily weatherization work in those type of units or buildings.
Okay, thank you. And there's another question. What is the income limit to receive the home repair program?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't have it memorized, but I did pull it up because I had a good feeling that I would get that question. So it looks like for a family size of one, for the home repair program, we're looking at you cannot the household income limit must not exceed $66,750. So that's for a family size of one. And let's just say for a family size of four, that income is limit is $95,300. And I can go ahead and post the income limit guidelines in the chat as well for the home repair program.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's very helpful. Martha, question for you. What specific vitamins do you recommend?
So I actually don't recommend, I can't recommend a vitamin per se, because there are so many different kinds and there's so many different dosages and there's so many different issues. What I do recommend is that you talk to your provider about calcium, about vitamin D, and vitamin B12. And those are the ones that I think are probably the most critical. But dosage is going to depend on a lot of different things. What are you normally eating, and are you getting enough already, or do you need more? I think sometimes just a generic multiple vitamin is not a bad idea, but there again, you have to be able to read the label and make sure that nothing is over 100% of the recommended dietary allowance. And those are hard to find. So I would always suggest work with a dietitian, with your provider, but focus on calcium, B12, and vitamin D, and ask for some help with recommendations for supplementation there.
Thank you. And Martha, another question. What nutrition programs are there for people that don't have Medicaid?
Well, there are all of the older American Act nutrition programs. So that's Meals on Wheels, that's the senior dining, or I don't know what they call it in Seattle, the community meals. All of those are available. Community meals are available to anybody age 60 and older. So there's no income limit to that program at all. For the Meals on Wheels, typically it is need-based. So it's really based more on if you are isolated, if you're living alone, if you don't have anybody to help support you. Sometimes if the programs are so full, there may be an income gradation where they look at the people who have a higher income may be a little bit lower on the list or may have to go on a wait list. But typically there is no income requirement, but it is based on need. So SNAP, which is the food stamp program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, that's where you get your EBT card that you can use to purchase food. That is based on income, but it's I think a higher income level than just the Medicaid level. I'm not actually really sure exactly what that level is. But certainly the Meals on Wheels and the community dining programs are open to people without regards to income typically.
Thank you, Martha. And during COVID and even continuing now, many of the community dining are doing hybrid. So they're doing in-person congregate meals and they also have some to-go meals.
Right. Right.
Question for you, Carol. Where can I get the bumper pants and anti-slip devices?
All right, so I just put in the chat and I just looked up padded, oh gosh, how does it, is it padded? It just escaped me. But anyway, if you go look for padded pants that have padding on the side of the pants rather than underneath. We're not looking at bicycle padded pants. We're looking for the ones that are on the side that would help protect the greater trochanter, the ball and socket there when you do fall. You can look online for those. They're running about $50, $60 a piece. I know when I go to medical equipments to look for things for my mom and dad, they are also there. So you might want to take a look at what pharmacy you have in your area that's by a hospital, whether they have those medical equipments as well as the apparels. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Those are two. Now the traction cleats, I just basically Googled traction cleats and Walmart Target, some of the other places have them if you want to go in person, or you can get them online. Again, this one, I don't know that I would recommend very much because it's a little harder to move if you've got arthritis. But there are others that are flat, and then you just hook it over the toe area and then pull it to the heel. And those seem to be easier to put on. And again, one could probably find those also in places like REI or outdoor recreation stores.
Thank you so much. Eldad, any other questions from the audience?
No, I think everybody is digesting the information that's been shared with them. So I will close this off. I want to say thank you for all of our.
We do have one question from the audience, if I could ask it.
Yes, for sure, please.
How do I ask here? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
The size of the loan from the home repair program, I want to be sure I interpreted that correctly. She's doing it. Yeah. So. Did you hear that?
Soka, did you hear that?
It was sorry, I didn't hear it clearly, but it was about the home repair program and interpretation.
The size of the loan, I believe that's what I
Oh,
heard.
the size of the loan. Okay, thank you for that question. But the size of the loan is up to $45,000, and it's 0% interest.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone.
And we do have one other question
Yes.
coming that's being translated currently.
Oh, the question is, my mother is living with me, and I want to know if I would be eligible for the home winterization program as a family.
Yes. Well, I want to say it depends on your income limits. It will depend on your it will depend on if you meet the income limit amount, but we do serve intergenerational families. We consider anyone who lives in a household as part of the kind of the household size. So in this example, your household size, if it's just you and your mom, it'd be two people in the house, and that income limit. And I don't can't pull up the income limit right now, but it'd be a household size of 2 and whatever that income limit is, which corresponds to that. But yes, definitely we do serve intergenerational families. We consider anyone who lives in the home as part of the household.
I think that is it for the audience as of right now. So thank you for taking those.
You're welcome. So I want to say thank you to all of our panelists. You're amazing. And again, it's my deep appreciation to be a part of this important work and continue to network and work with all of you collaboratively to provide as much support as we can to our diverse community, and looking at the mind, body, and soul, because we know that it's all important to address, you know, our complexities as well as our diverse communities. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Over to you, Eldad.
Thank you, Mary Pat. And I also want to thank you guys again, Mary Pat, for moderating, our panelists for joining us today. Thank you for our attendees at High Point Neighborhood House, and for those joining us online, for joining us on this beautiful Thursday and having coffee with us and enjoying this great discussion, retaining these relevant information as we enter the winter months. This is going to be our last event for this year, but we'll be back next year, January 17, 2023. And I have shared on my screen Some of you might be familiar with the Community Living Connection. It's a great resource for older adults, adults with disabilities, and caregivers. It's a one-stop shop for a lot of resources here in Seattle, and it covers the whole King County. And I also want to highlight our gold card and flashcards. If you're here in High Point, please come to our resource desk and grab yourself a gold card. You get to qualify for discounts around the city if you're 60 and over. If you're 18 to 59 with disabilities, please grab a flashcard. And I want to close this off by saying thank you again. We'll see you guys next year.